All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine, Women, and Words. I am Michelle, and with me, of course, is Diana.
Hello.
And this evening, we have Madeline Martin with us. We're going to be talking about the Secret Book Society, which I'm very excited to dive into. So, thank you so much for making some time for us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I mean, you guys had me at wine.
Well, if today hadn't been the long day that it had been, and tomorrow is going to be another long day, I would definitely be having a glass right now. But today it's water, which is
Yeah,
okay.
we're all gonna just drink pretend wine tonight.
Right?
Like I'm just getting back from book tour, so I've been drinking quite a bit of wine. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been with my nephews who are like 1 and 2, and little kids have germs. So I'm doing an immune support drink right now.
I like that.
That's fair.
Very good
Yes,
idea.
they're
Because they
adorable, but
do.
they're germy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, for our listeners who may not yet be familiar with the Secret Book Society, can you give us an overview of what the story is about?
Yes, so it's basically about this countess who has been widowed 3 times. And yes, there is definitely some talk that maybe she murdered her husbands. And she finds out that these women in her community are having their reading materials suppressed. Now, women really were very much discouraged from reading back in the Victorian era. They felt that it took women away from their being wives and mothers, so it was a very selfish endeavor. It led to promiscuity. They felt like women didn't have the emotional fortitude that it took to go through a journey that a novel would take them on. And heaven forbid, it gave them opinions that differed from the men in their lives. And so she finds out these women are having their reading materials restricted, and she opens her very expansive library that she's personally curated over to them. And really kind of under the auspices of a banal womanly tea. So instead of gossip, you have more subversive things going on, like women reading, not only reading empowering books, but also empowering one another. So it's very much women building up other women, and it's kind of everything that I love about the Victorian time period.
I think so. This book kind of, once you start reading it, you just can't stop because that is what I experienced when I first picked it up. And I'm very upset that I haven't been able to finish it yet because that's all I want to do. So I don't actually know how it ends, which is probably good because otherwise we definitely would have uh gone into spoilers like 100%.
Oh,
And
this is one of the books. I've got a very long plane flight coming up. As the listeners know, because I keep talking about it.
and you are going to fly through this book. I didn't even plan it, but it just happened.
I want to take a
See,
moment
folks,
to
and
talk.
this is us without wine.
Right?
Could you only imagine? One of the things I do want to talk about is that cover. How
It's
much I love the
beautiful.
cover.
Oh, thank you.
And it's such a striking blue against that gold.
Yeah, and I really, I ended up, so part of the story is Lady Duxbury, because it's told from four perspectives. Three of the women who are invited into the Secret Book Society, and then also Lady Duxbury, who is admittedly like she's intentionally a very mysterious and enigmatic character. And I
Mhm.
love a good, juicy diary reveal. And so her entire history is sort of revealed in this hidden diary. And I also really love to tie my covers to my stories. And so her diary is actually the exact same blue as the cover is. And
Oh,
then also floriography, which is a language of flowers, plays a really big part in this particular book, meaning that every flower or plant that is mentioned has been done with purpose because it all of the flowers have hidden meanings in the Victorian era. And so
mhm.
there's one particular book called Floriography by Jessica Rowe. It's Roux, and I do have it in the back in the author's note of the book. But she writes a book called Floriography where she has all these beautiful hand-drawn images of flowers and their meanings. So if somebody wanted to, they could go on a literary scavenger hunt through the entire book and pick out why every plant and flower has been mentioned. And if they did not want to, they could absolutely read the book without their enjoyment being impeded whatsoever.
That is
I
amazing. And
love
now I
that.
know the extra activities I'm going to be doing on my flight.
Thank you. It was a lot of
I'm not going
fun
to
to
be bored at
do.
all.
The Victorian era just has so many cool things. It was really fun to get to explore a lot of them.
And that was such a, I'm so fascinated by that time period because It was so weird when we
Yes.
look back at it, where we were making these advances in science, but it was all wrong.
Yes.
And and then you have also this era of propriety and and in some ways, I know we've talked about it before with some past authors who've written, there's also almost a pseudo regression, in my opinion, when it comes to how we look at women and also and races and whatnot. Because isn't,
Right.
am I mistaken? Wasn't eugenics kind of big during that time period too?
I mean, there were, I now I confess I didn't study as much of that. I did delve into hysteria and lunatic asylums because that
Mm-hmm.
also does actually come into play with this book. Um, So I actually talk about like part of the inspiration for this story is kind of an anti-Cinderella story, and that is founded in the lunatic asylums. So I found this amazing story, a true story that happened where a man was having an affair with his wife's niece, ill, and yeah, the wife obviously complained about this. So he did as one does in the Victorian era to get her out of the way. He just sends her to a lunatic asylum. So as she's in this carriage on the way to the asylum, she sees a boy on the street and she throws him some money and she tells him, "Please tell my friends I'm being taken to this asylum." And he said, "Well, how will they know it's you?" So, quick thinking, she takes off her boot and she throws it out the window. This boy goes to the friend's home with her boot in hand and says, "Your friend has been taken." And they're able to hire a solicitor who specializes in getting women out of lunatic asylums who have been wrongfully committed. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So the Secret Book Society opens up with an urchin in Lady Duxbury's drawing room, and he is holding in his hands a black kid skin leather boot with rose embroidery along the laces. And he says, "Your friend has been taken." And maybe you
Uh,
know who it is, but maybe you don't. So that's a big part of the book as well.
Well,
Damn it, if I didn't
that's
have my edits, I would be reading it like right now.
well, then that was one of my questions was that this book, like, it's historical fiction, it's a mystery because I'm at the point like the boot has been introduced, so you know who owns the boot, but I have the feeling that's going to change hands. Like, oh, you can borrow them. Like, they'll go
Maybe,
great
maybe
with
not.
that
I can't
dress.
say.
Yeah. So, and but like I did notice, color is another thing that plays a really prominent role
Right.
in the novel, and the dresses uh that oh gosh,
Eleanor wears.
Rose or Eleanor
Yeah.
wears, and then Rose, she's the God, am I
The
remembering
American
the right?
Dollar
Yes,
Princess.
she's
Yeah.
she's the American who always feels out of place, but she always wears like really bold colors. So now that we know that flowers were a very intentional selection, were colors also kind of another intentional decision while you were writing?
Absolutely. I've always really been fascinated by color archetypes. And so, especially when it comes to Eleanor's character. So, Eleanor is sort of the quintessential perfect English woman. She's
Hmm.
beautiful. She's married to the wealthiest man in England. She's, born to aristocracy. She has a son. And of all the women, everyone looks at her and they think, gosh, she's got this beautiful, perfect life. But she is the most oppressed of all of them, where everything in her life is controlled to the nth degree with the only allowance of the only square of freedom that she has is what she wears. And so it seems like this very flippant, sort of shallow thing for her wardrobe to be such a big deal to her, but it is so deeply layered and really what freedom means to her and how far she's really allowed to flex any control in her life. So it's a very important aspect, and so very much color does come into play with her as well. Yeah,
Then they're all such like, and they all have, going back to kind of the mystery of who is actually getting sent off to this asylum at the beginning of the book, they all have secrets, I don't know
right,
all of them yet, that could land them in an asylum in that age. Like Eleanor, her husband could get mad that she showed him up at a party because she understands the aristocracy better than he does.
right.
Or Lavinia has I don't, she has some mental health issues that she's struggling with. It sounds like she just has really bad anxiety, but I don't know if
Right,
it, delves deeper into that. That could land her in an asylum in the Victorian age.
right.
Um, and then Kate is just loud and brash and speaks her mind and doesn't follow any of the rules. And so they all
Sounds like
have
I'm gonna like
these.
Kate.
Did I say the right name? I keep wanting to
It's
say
okay. It's
Rose.
Rose.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
okay.
I don't know. I was like, wait, no, that doesn't. And this is without wine.
Oh
So
gosh, you're fine.
Rose.
But I also have to laugh because I see your black cat up there, and I have a black cat that's sleeping right next to me. And so it's adorable. We both have black cats.
He does like to make an appearance every
Yeah.
week.
Yes.
Um, this is actually the only time of week that he actually cuddles with me.
Oh.
Um, I get an hour a week, and this is it.
That's adorable. Now, I will say also, I love animals. I see that you, Diana, also have a puppy in your lap. Like, obviously, we all love our babies. So I
Mhm.
love to put animals in books, and this book is no exception. And I always tell my readers, as a promise to them, I will tell them that I will never ever hurt or kill any animal that I put into my book because I am way too much of a bleeding heart to ever do that. But I have two super cute pets in this one. So one is a little pug named Pluto, and he belongs to Rose, who's the American Dollar Princess. And he was like the runt of the litter, and now he's as wide as he is tall, and he's like this intrepid, loyal little guy, and he's just adorable. And then I have an all black cat with a white mustache marking on his face because he's a gentleman, and his name is Otis. And Otis is Lady Duxbury's cat, and he is actually inspired by this cat that belonged to a friend of mine like a million years ago. So my friend Jim had this cat named Tori, and whenever we would go to Jim's house, in his living room, he always had like an abandoned aquarium sort of set off to the side of the room. And once everybody got there, Tori would slink into the room and slip inside of the aquarium. And he would say, like, he would just, or she would just sit there and watch us all with these like wide green eyes. And Jim would say, "Oh, please don't look at her. She thinks you can't see her." And I always loved that. I thought it was just the cutest thing ever. And so you never know when real life inspiration is going to come back and slide into one of your novels. And so in Lady Duxbury's drawing room, she has an empty vase, and Otis will slip into that vase, and she says, "Oh, please don't look at Otis. He's terribly shy and thinks you can't see him."
I love that so much. Oh, wonderful.
And that's
It's a lot of
Rose that
fun.
has the dog, not Kate. Like,
Yes, correct. Oh, you're
my
fine. It's okay.
gosh.
It's a lot. Yeah, no, there's a lot of names, and plus, I'm sure you guys have a lot of book names you have to deal with when you're chatting with people.
Yes, book names that we have when we're chatting with people, and then our own book names,
Right,
and always coming up with the wait, what happened in my book again?
right. Oh gosh, I can't even get my kids' names right. I call them the wrong name all the time, and I'm like, you know who I am. You know who I'm talking to. You know who you are.
Doing that to my nephews. There's only two of them, and I'm calling, and I was talking to my husband about something, and I was like, "Oh, you weren't there, but did you see what Remy did?" And my husband was like, "That was, you mean Theo, right?" And I was like, "Oh, right, yeah."
Yep.
I was just testing you and you
Yep,
passed.
yep. Yeah, we always learned there were three of us with my in my family, and whoever my dad called last, that was the one that he actually wanted.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So another thing, and this is kind of like more of an observation because I had a couple as well. I was making my list of questions, but
Yeah,
I love that this book, of course, is about female friendship and how important female friendship is. But I love that it's not just about that, but the characters all talk about that and how important female friendship is. And this is during a time when, if their husbands didn't approve of the friendship, they wouldn't be allowed to spend time with each other.
right.
So I just love that kind of it highlights it and underscores it, but it's also a theme that the characters explore during the story also.
Thank you. Yeah, it was something that I really wanted to make sure that I explored. I think, and that's one of the things that I love about our industry is how women help to build each other up. I mean, I'm in the middle of my book tour, and every city that I've gone to, I have so many friends who will come out and take their Saturday or their evening and doing conversation with me. And like when my book came out, so many people shared it, so many people blurbed it. I mean, it's we have such a wonderful community of women building up other women. And I feel like I've spent so much of my life with other women who seem to always tear one another down. And this is such a beautiful, supportive group that we're part of. And I really wanted to not only embrace that, but really celebrate it and explain, why it's so wonderful for women to do that. But also, I really wanted this to be about perception versus reality because from the outside, all of these women look like they have perfect lives. And from the
Mhm.
outside, don't all of us look like we have perfect lives, especially like with social media. And it's funny because I look back at these medieval paintings and women are painted without any body hair whatsoever. So they have essentially been photoshopping us since the medieval days, before photos were even a thing. And women are always having to strive for this impossible perfection.
Mhm.
And underneath, we're all just real people. And so for me, I wanted the women of the Secret Book Society to come across as being perfect and having these perfect lives. And as their layers come apart in this vulnerable setting, they start to understand that each of them has not only certain weaknesses, but maybe where somebody else might have a strength. And rather than
Mhm.
exploit that weakness, they share that strength and they help build one another up. And that's just the best thing ever.
I
I
think
love that.
one of, oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's so good. That's
Um, I was just gonna say, I think one of my scenes, and this isn't a spoiler at all, but one of my favorite scenes so far is when Eleanor kind of comes to Rose's aid during a luncheon, and she kind of like makes that headway and forces other women to start accepting her and acknowledging her as a human being versus just, like
A
the
social
American,
outcast.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Thank
thought that
you.
was a really special moment for the two of them where Eleanor kind of realizes that she has power,
Right.
that she does have her own sense of agency where she can influence a situation, and Rose realizes that she has an ally.
Yeah. Thank you. Mhm.
Okay, Diana, you go.
well, I think one of the things that strikes me with having with books having the like this book having female friendships it's a reminder of how important it is. And I think recently on social media there was talk about, oh, do you really need female friendships? And
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a
I think
short answer.
the older we get, like the older I get, the more I appreciate my female friends so much more than I ever did before when I was younger. It's like I can't imagine my life without my close friends.
Yeah, and I also feel like when with what you were saying with the book friends in this community too, where it's like I don't know, the people that when you connect with books, oftentimes you feel closer than those who you don't, because you have this shared love of a story that you can connect to, but it's also that share of empathy and emotion that you can also connect
Absolutely.
to.
And this was such a fascinating time period in literary history because you started to have a lot of these women who were not only publishing novels, but publishing them in their own names. Which, like for example, when Jane Austen first began publishing, her books were always published by a lady. It was never published by Jane Austen, not until after her death were her books published as Jane Austen. So in this time period in 1895, women's books are being published under their name. So that's one major thing. But the other thing is with female authors, before this, you had male authors who were writing female characters, which ultimately meant that a majority of the characters that were women were bucketed into two different items or two different categories, the angel or the fallen woman. And there really was not a lot in between. So now you have these female authors who are writing these emotionally rich and layered women who are real. So for example, I use Sense and Sensibility where we
Mhm.
have Marianne, who is admittedly this incredibly mercurial, capricious character who has almost explosive emotional outbursts. And at no point in time does anybody ever mention the word hysteria or suggest a lunatic asylum. She is allowed free rein to explore her emotions and let them be felt. Can you imagine being a woman of that time period and being told that you should always restrain your emotions and seeing a character like that and seeing her be so free, how wonderful that must feel.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
then we have like Jane Eyre, for example, which is another one of my favorite books. And one of my favorite lines from that one is in the very beginning, this priest is talking to her. She's this precocious little girl, and he's telling her she's a bad girl and she's going to go to hell. And what does she have to say for herself? And she basically says, I will endeavor to remain in good health and never die. And it just kind of goes, it gets better from there. And even Rochester, like he loves her because she speaks her mind and she says these unique, amazing things that just come from her brain right to her mouth. And she forges her own path. And again, imagine how empowering that would be if you were told your entire life you're supposed to fit into the social box. And that's the only place that you can ever move. And you read books about women who explore the world outside of that. And so these books were so empowering for these women to read in these times, which is why they were so scary. But I wanted to also illustrate that it isn't just men who are bad and women who are good, because there are good men and there are bad women, and there are also men who are having to operate in their own societal boxes as well.
Mm.
So I kind of try to explore a lot of that, but I definitely think that this particular time period in the literary world is really incredible.
It is. It is. I mean, my first thought came to mind was Mary Shelley.
Yes.
Because, yeah, Frankenstein, I mean, she was one of the, whoever thought that she would be the creator of Frankenstein, and she had to publish
Right.
under anonymously. And for
Yeah.
years, so many people just assumed it was her husband. And no, it was this teenage girl who wrote it.
Yeah. And there are so many women with stories like that. And it
Mhm.
really is truly incredible. And so it is such a fascinating time period in literary history.
So, which book would you have picked from Lady Duxbury's library to read if you were part of the Secret Book Society?
So there is one called The Mask of Poets. It's Masque of poets.
Mm.
And that actually was published in America. And I think I actually mentioned that more from Rose's perspective, but I would assume that somehow it'd end up in Lady Duxbury's library at some point. But the cool thing about this particular book is that it was composed of multiple authors, but you didn't know who the author was. So it was a mix of well-established, well-renowned poets in addition to brand new poets. So every single work wasn't based off of a name or the merit that that name had
Mhm.
that was attributed to that name. It was based off of just the writing alone. And I think that's
Mm.
actually a really cool concept to think about taking authors from all different sort of aspects of their or areas in their different careers and putting them into one piece, completely anonymous, and letting it be judged on the weight of its work alone.
That is
That's
so
really cool.
cool. That's so
Yeah.
cool. I feel like that's one of the reasons why I love Elena Ferrante is because nobody knows who she is. And
Yeah.
that's her whole shtick is that she wants her books to be judged on the books themselves. Once the books are out there, they have a life of their own, and she doesn't want to have any part of it whatsoever. And I think that's one of the things that I truly love about that author is that letting the books just be out there and speak for themselves.
Right. Oh, that is really cool. Mhm.
So I know we're coming up at our time just about, but one thing we always, and also this book, also kind of like creates the TBR list in the Victorian era because all the women go, "Oh, I want to read that next," and it's like, yeah, I know that feeling, but just because we like to add to our own TBR lists, what are you reading right now?
So right now I am actually reading Wuthering Heights. Or I guess I should say rereading Wuthering Heights. But I also just finished listening to, because I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks with doing all
Mm.
of the driving that I'm doing for my book tour. So I just listened to two really good books. One is All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker, which is
Mm.
really, really, really good. It's basically about like the serial killer that's going through and killing women, and it's like girls, and it's all through, gosh, I think it's told through like 50 years. And it starts off with a
Oh.
little girl who everyone picks on who does like beekeeping, and a little boy with one eye who calls himself Patch. And he thinks he's a pirate. And it's like it's kind of them growing up and their stories, and it's really good. And then there was another one called The Lies They Told Us. And I don't remember the name of the author. It's three names. I can't remember. Um, she has three names, but it's basically about the Germans who are emigrating to Ellis Island, and it's dealing with eugenics and the sterilization of people that they deem feeble-minded, as well as people in the Appalachians. And it was so incredibly good. It was really, really well done.
That looks really, really fascinating. The Dark Colors book that's been on my TBR list forever.
Yeah, it's been on mine forever too. And I confess, like, whenever there's a really long book, I always keep putting it off because I'm like, oh, I can read like three books in that time period. However, my
I
local
did that
neighborhood
too.
book club, who's meeting tomorrow, actually chose it for book club. So I was like, okay, I actually need to really read it now. It was really good. It was totally worth it. It did not feel like it was that long.
Well, it's two more books on the list.
Yeah.
And I know in addition to the Secret Book Society, when I was on your website, I saw that you have another book coming out next year. And of course, as soon as I bring it up, the title, it's Witch something, and I completely forgot the title. But it really stuck out in my mind because it's the first book that doesn't have the word book in it or something
Yeah, no,
about books.
yeah, so it's a little bit of a departure. It is still going to incorporate books in some aspect, but it's not going to be sort of the major player like my previous stories have. It's
Hmm.
called A Time of Witches. It is set
Thank
in the
you.
1600s. It's about the witch trials in England during the 1600s. And additionally, it's also a new one for me because this is my first dual timeline where I have a contemporary character. So the modern day perspective starts off in Georgia and Savannah. And it's basically about a curse that transcends centuries, and history must be rewritten. And if it is not, then all is lost. Dun dun dun. So it should be fall 2026, but it does not have a release date. It does not have a cover. It does not have an official blurb, but it is on Goodreads. And people can add it to their want to read shelf on Goodreads. And I always sort of do a little update as I'm writing my book and it's going through the editorial process and publication process so people can follow the journey with me if they so choose. So, A Time of Witches on Goodreads, add it to your shelf.
Yay.
Well, that's three books now, three books to add to the list.
Yes.
Thank you.
Um, well, everyone, if you would like to order your own copy of The Secret Book Society, be sure to check out the link in our show notes. You can head over to our bookshop on bookshop.org. As always, bookshop.org supports all of our amazing writers. It supports the podcast, but most importantly, it supports all of the amazing indie bookstores out there. I got tongue-tied. And Madeline, thank you so much for making some time for us tonight. We've had so much fun chatting with you.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for letting me come on the show.
Thank you
Absolutely.
for joining us.
Have a lovely evening.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.